Regan Slaymaker for Radiant.Green, and I have the pleasure to be joined by Alan Whitehead, the Shadow Minister for Energy and Climate Change. Alan, how are you today?
I'm good. The main thing on my mind right now is our Prime Minister making announcements about the future of net zero and green without bringing them in front of Parliament, because Parliament's in recess at the moment. Firstly, I'm really fed up with what he said, and secondly, champing at the bit to try and see if we can get some further elucidation in Parliament, but that's not to be at the moment.
No, well, I think a lot of the news. Well, I was having an interview yesterday, kind of about EV and EV charging rollout, and I don't think many people in the EV industry are particularly happy with some of the decisions made as well.
Indeed.
But so we'll jump straight into it. So you're one of our keynote speakers. Pleasure to have one of you as one of our keynote speakers at Solar and Storage Live this year. And you have a presentation titled "Labour's Vision for the UK Solar Industry." Obviously, you've touched on kind of what you've said about the current government and kind of their policies and things like that. So we'll jump straight into it. What is Labour's vision for the UK solar industry?
That's a very simple vision. And that relates to our ambition to make sure that UK power is fully decarbonised by 2030, so that we will have a overwhelmingly predominant power system based on renewables and low carbon energy from 2030 onwards. And solar has an enormous part to play in that ambition, particularly bearing in mind we've got the famous 15-15-15, that is 15 gigawatts of offshore wind presently installed, 15 gigawatts onshore, 15 gigawatts of solar. But of course, each of those sectors are in very different circumstances. Offshore wind, we've got a particular problem in the future with the allocation rounds getting offshore wind away, but we think we can get to that target of about 75 gigawatts of offshore wind by that period. Onshore wind obviously has got to be restarted from its ban over a long period in England particularly, so there's a real mountain to climb there. But as far as solar concerns, the main issue is just how we can get the sites sorted for large ground-mounted solar, how we can proceed forward with roof solar, and particularly expand rooftop solar from predominantly individual roofs to a greater aggregated view of solar in urban areas and on roofs, and looking particularly to enormously expand the presence of solar in industrial and commercial premises, and then aggregating that up so that you can have, as it were, a virtual solar power station in every town and city, basically. So just trying to get the contribution of solar enormously uprated, so that that 15 gigawatts can run alongside the expansion that we're going to need, probably a five-fold expansion of solar over the next period, to make sure those targets can be met. And that's basically all hands to the pump to make sure it happens.
Perfect. Obviously, the solar industry, it goes without saying, is booming at the moment. It kind of obviously the demand's increasing and the price is also going down as well. Is that kind of going to be, I don't want to say the main kind of factor that's going to help increase solar kind of distribution in the UK, not only at a commercial level but a residential level as well? Is that cost decrease and the increase in demand kind of paramount importance, obviously, to you, and it's very helpful at this time as well to increase that rollout?
Well, yes, it's I mean, it's on the one hand really encouraging that the cost has come down so much. I remember when I've actually got a solar roof. I had solar tiles on my house some while ago, and that, believe me, was quite an expensive operation. And so if I had my time over today, I'd be far better off than I was at that particular time. So that 80% cost reduction is an absolute underpinning of where we go. But there is an important element in that for the future, that we need to incorporate that cost reduction into UK manufacture and UK sourcing of solar panels and solar equipment for the future. So I don't think it's a very healthy future to be effectively dependent on one country for our solar panels and relying on cost reduction for the fact that they are effectively cornering the market in solar panels. So we are very concerned to make sure that we have as much indigenous production of solar. I mean, there's some in the UK at the moment, but not to the extent that is needed to underpin that move forward as far as solar is concerned. So we want to see a lot more indigenous mega factories in the UK producing solar panels in Great Britain, so that we can underpin that cost reduction with a firm UK base for the future. Now, there are a number of other problems and issues upcoming in terms of solar expansion. The most notable of which is solar field, along with a number of other renewables, are experiencing not just substantial planning issues, but also very considerable issues in terms of connections. And that's one thing we've really got to get to grips with as far as developing national grid and indeed the distributed networks to provide the connection, so that as the field solar is built, it can connect in a timely fashion. And we're not there at the moment, not remotely.
Okay, so there's a lot of things need to be done. One thing you did pick up there that kind of I've done a lot of research. It is kind of diversifying that supply chain. So one of Labour's kind of main kind of focuses is kind of increasing and ramping up the homegrown manufacture of solar panels, whilst also trying to maintain the price that is happening kind of with other supply chains across the world as well.
That's right. There really is no long-term future in being dependent on that one country for our solar panels, important though Chinese imports have been in terms of cost reduction. So I guess for the future, there's a bit of a balancing act to be done in terms of making sure that we get reliable supplies, that those reliable supplies are at a good cost level, but at the same time, we're not simply abandoning any UK manufacture and development of solar panels simply on a cost basis to that one country. That's not going to be healthy for UK energy security or for British manufacturing and support in the future. So, among other things, there are very large numbers of jobs at potential stake here, i.e. jobs that can come to the UK in indigenous solar production and ensure that we've got energy security right down the line. Solar itself, obviously, is a tremendous boost for UK energy security, in as much as you've got completely homegrown power on a completely secure basis. But it would be good to have the whole chain secure, I think, for the long-term future.
Definitely. I do want to kind of move away from that topic now, and kind of discuss kind of decarbonisation more generally. In and that with that, I'll ask: in your view, kind of, is there anything that kind of industries or the UK renewable industry should be doing to increase the rate of decarbonisation?
Well, we just have to increase the rate of decarbonisation, and we've got no time to lose, because every year, every 5 years, we delay our decarbonisation process. Then the greater the pylon is at the end of the period leading up to 2050. And I mean, that's why I'm so angry with what the Prime Minister has just announced about putting dates back and getting to a position where we're just not going to be able to catch up in terms of that decarbonisation rate, having delayed and put decisions off, and missed targets, which we increasingly will do with the sort of approach that the Prime Minister is taking. So it's essential that we understand that this isn't just an issue where it's business as usual until 2045, when we suddenly panic and then try and make everything as low carbon as possible. It's a year by year, month by month continuation of a concentration on low carbon to get us where we want to get to. And solar obviously has a very substantial role to play in that, in a variety of ways. Firstly, as I said, with the installation of ground mounted in large parts of the country, and we've got things to negotiate with that in terms of planning and making sure that communities are happy with what is being put in. So there's some negotiation to be undertaken there. A lot of negotiation to be undertaken in terms of how we roll out solar to a much greater extent in urban areas. There's also an upcoming issue of repowering solar farms that are there already. So I'm very anxious to see that when solar is coming up for repowering, then we can get the most gain possible from the modernisation of techniques and the increasing output of panels that has been a feature, not just so of the last 20 years, not just been a question of price reduction, been a question of efficiency and power increase and power output from panels. And of course, a number of newer techniques are coming into play, which can actually get us even more power from solar panels for the future, so that repowering uses the most up-to-date new techniques as far as power is concerned, so that we can get a lot more out of those sites in the future when that repowering point comes up.
Perfect. Perfect. Obviously, a lot of the topic kind of around solar and storage live. When I talk to the producers here, arranging the topics, kind of that efficiency of not only new panels but panels that are already existing, making the most out of them is of paramount importance. I do want to touch on kind of solar and storage live. Obviously, you're a keynote speaker at Solar and Storage Live. For you, not only why is it important for you to kind of participate and kind of present, say, Labour's vision for solar at Solar and Storage Live, but why is it also important for kind of the industry to meet at the event itself as well?
Well, I'm really pleased that I've been invited to speak at the conference because it does give me a golden opportunity to set out what a new Labour government not only would want to do as far as future of solar is concerned, but also what expectations a new government would have from the industry. How can the industry really get its its vision for its own future aligned with what we want to do about the future of solar. Now, you may say that's rather kicking on an open door, in as much as I'm sure what the industry will take from what I have to say at a conference will be a very positive underlining of its own future. But I think it's important we meet and discuss that, and also that I get a good comeback on whether the industry, for example, thinks that what we are aiming to do is something they maybe can't easily deliver, or what are the circumstances under which that future can be delivered. There are all sorts of issues about underwriting for new schemes, and we've seen recently with the allocation rounds that have been discussed and carried out, that they've turned out to be very unsatisfactory in terms of the CFD mechanism for the future. So do we need other mechanisms that can help move these new fields forward? And what has industry got to say about that? And how does industry think government ought to proceed in terms of making the passage to that fivefold increase of solar that we're envisaging a smooth ride rather than a bumpy ride? I think that's the important difference that we can achieve with a good level of discussion and collaboration. So really looking forward in a period where we will have an election within a year. We hope that there will be a new majority Labour government after that election. And not only do we hope, but we know that following that new Labour government, it'll be going on this from day one of the new Labour government. So we want to be as prepared as we possibly can be, not just for the road ahead, but for removing the logs that may be in the road when we actually get to drive down it, to strain the metaphor somewhat. So important we have discussions now to make sure that's as smooth as possible.
Definitely. Well, that's and I speak for everyone at Solar and Storage Live, that's kind of what we want to create at the event. Kind of those difficult discussions need to be had to basically reach the outcome everyone wants. So that's I think that's a perfect answer, Alan. But no, thank you very much, Alan, for your time today. That was a great interview, and I hope all the audience think so as well. But no, thank you very much again for your time, and I'll see you at Solar and Storage Live.
Great, good. Okay, well, thanks for your time this morning, and I'll look forward to a massive YouTube hit on it.